Bunn. Changes, leave. And live stream. Are we on the air? Says that we're live.
I'm hoping so.
I'm hoping so, eh? Let's put a link in here. Kind of forgot that part. This is very covert activities for our pilot.
Yeah, well,
save.
They aren't all going to start.
Well, also, this amazing computer that I have, this amazing computer situation.
Your setup is
that I have.
Stellar.
What'd you do today, Nick? Did you
worked. I did some work.
Did some edits.
And then took care of animals.
Animal keeper.
Played guitar.
The keeper of animals, yeah. Played some guitar. What?
Yeah.
Who does that?
I know.
Who does this? And I guess if I do a Nick Hill post, Instagram, create post.
See, this is the minutia. This is very relevant to this podcast. What you're doing.
Oh, are
right
we
now.
on? Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, we're live. We're just gonna let it be then. Okay, cool. Welcome. Is there anybody on? I don't know if there's anybody on
yet.
There's
a couple.
Oh, there
couple
is.
Folks.
Hello, everyone. This is our pilot live stream for kind of a weekly content series called Bandless. And Bandless is I guess a podcast live stream all about today's solo musician kind of situation, and how you work in every medium and all the challenges that come with working in every medium. And the jack of all trades, master of none, the person who wears all the hats, and I guess the challenge of keeping the main thing when the main thing is 20 things.
Right.
And that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah. You and I like to kind of, what's the term that I can't think of now? Peek behind the curtain.
Peek behind the curtain of like, what is all the stuff that happens or that you have to task yourself to or worry yourself about or learn or whatever.
Yeah.
Before there is a video, before there is a new song, before there is
anything really,
getting good at any software, before there is playing live shows, before there is putting out a record. What does it mean to put out a record? And it's forever changing. So the interesting thing is the conversation around all of it is going to be forever changing, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah. There's always going to be adjustments we're going to make, even to the way we do things now. That can change, in a few months. Who knows?
Change a lot.
Adapting is definitely part of it for sure.
Constant adapting.
Yeah.
Today's episode, Nick, we're going to talk about going solo with music in 2021.
Yes.
It's an interesting time. We have the pandemic year behind us, which is a year that kind of forced a lot of people to consider solo activities or doing things from a solo perspective, even if they are collaborating, what it means to work by yourself, even if you are still, in fact, working with other people as an artist and kind of making things happen. And I think what's really interesting, pandemic or not, is when you kind of go at it yourself, when you go solo, it's kind of like the pandemic always. You really have to focus on this online thing first. And I think as a solo artist now, you go with the online first, and then you go to the markets where there is promise, I guess, if you're going to start going and touring and all that kind of stuff. You don't jump in a van and just book a tour anywhere anymore.
Right. You have to put in the legwork first, and you have to give people a reason to, like you say, at some point, go to your show. But until you get to that point, buy your music, watch your videos, etc. Follow you on
whatever
Instagram.
the medium
You
might be.
you have to create this presence.
Yeah. Got some folks in the stream there. Prashuria. I don't know if I'm saying that correct. Hello.
Prashuria.
It is not Saturday.
It's not Saturday.
Our Saturdays together were our sort of testing to do this sort of stuff, or maybe the catalyst to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah. And Dylan, believe it or not, we did not coordinate our shirts.
Not at all. We did the last time, though. The last time that we looked so good together, it was coordinated. Aaron Drums, how are you, my brother?
What's up?
Nick, you don't know Aaron. Aaron
No.
Is a guy I used to play drums with. Aaron, Nick, Aaron.
I think I follow him on Instagram, don't I?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I think I do.
Aaron's a cool Toronto drummer. We did Authors together.
Sick. Nice.
And have since attempted to do other things. But yeah, so Aaron knows what this topic is all about. Getting going in 2021 as a solo artist, even if you are going to collaborate with people. So and doing it like as if you've never done it before. We're going to try and address it from that perspective. Like if you had never done anything before,
right,
or you had never done this before, but you know what you know now, that's what how we're gonna go about it. So I'm curious if you'd like to kick it off.
Sure.
Like I want to kind of hit a few points here, and we're gonna kind of all y'all in the chat, kind of weigh in on some of these points if you have experiences this way, or if you have, if you ponder some of these things, we can talk about it.
Yeah.
But Nick, if we were to start today, what thing would be the very first thing that you would focus on, knowing what you know now? So you're a guitar player and you're like, okay, I want to kind of go for it. I want to go out there. What is the very first thing that would be on your mind, knowing what you know now?
Yeah. So when we kind of were coming up with a plan for this, I did think on this question a lot, and something that I feel like I've only recently realized how important it is. And, I don't know if it's the right answer, or I don't know if I would answer it this way, a few months ago or a few months from now, but I kind of realized that having a certain look, kind of hitting the ground running in a sense. So do a little planning. I would have definitely done a little bit of planning on, first of all, not just aesthetically, but what is my channel going to be? When I started it, I didn't really know.
Right.
It kind of evolved into that.
Can I interject for a second?
Yeah.
So you would focus, number one, on YouTube and video.
Yes.
Like that would be your primary thing going forward as a music artist, starting today.
Yes, because I still feel like YouTube, while to most of my viewers, my music isn't exactly why they come here, it's because of YouTube that people have heard my music, or people go to Spotify.
I will agree, yeah.
Or go to Bandcamp and buy my stuff. So, and I'm a visual person. I know you're a visual person. Video is not as important as music, but it's pretty damn close for me as far as like creating story visually. So there is that too. There's that draw.
Right.
I love that aspect of it. But in regards to, okay, so you might not know exactly where your channel's going to go, but you want to have an idea. You can pivot, you can change, you can adapt to kind of like the audience and what they picked up on, that definitely drives the direction. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I would have had an aesthetic plan, like a look, like had an idea. Even if it would have changed by now, I would have been a little bit more professional with my presentation, um, with just how I would, thumbnails,
Yeah.
a logo, uh, you
Could we
know,
say that even if you, so I just kind of want to get inside of your
yeah,
idea right now.
yeah,
So I think what you're saying is even if if you identify right off the top, you're like, maybe I don't have the strongest idea and maybe I don't have the strongest ability to deliver on that idea, but I am going to prioritize that idea and allow it to evolve as I go, but I am going to make it a priority.
yes,
That's what you're saying?
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
saying, yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Um,
That's what I thought.
yeah. I just I didn't have any idea what I was doing when I jumped into it, and I
Right. You
think
just went for it.
yes, which is what a lot of people do need to do. I think
Yeah,
you don't
I
want to
think
sit and
so.
think about it too much. It kind of like harkens back to mixing. If you think about it, people ask us all the time, how do you know when a song is done? And it's like you just got to finish it.
Right.
You just got to be done with it,
Yeah.
because you can tweak and mix for eternity if you wanted to.
Yeah. Answer that question. Is what I'm doing actually like, if I continue to dwell on this thing, can I deliver anything better to it? Or have I delivered the best I can for the time being and get it out there, be done with it, and move on to the next thing and allow development of things to happen that way rather than pour everything into the first thing? Be like, okay, I've done my thing and I'm going to try and do even better on the next thing and next thing and next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, that was just a real long-winded way of saying I would have had a more of a plan. Even if, like I said, even if I would have pivoted at some point. Pivoted?
Yeah.
Even if I would have to pivot.
Would you
Um,
not say I know how I feel about it, but like curious what you think the pivot itself. So
mhm.
for those of you, if we're talking like, what the hell are you talking about with this pivot? Pivot just means to make an abrupt change. It could be, you know, 30-degree change, a 90-degree change, a 180-degree change,
Yeah.
whatever. Identifying that the direction that you're going at any one time could be in business, could be with an artistic endeavor, could be with any of these sorts of things. But it's like, um, you're like, what is happening here? I'm unsatisfied, or I feel like I'm just going the wrong way, or I'm far more happy or inspired or whatever going this way, and you make a pivot.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think it goes you definitely have to go in the direction that is giving you the most personal fulfillment. Um, and when I started the YouTube channel, my thought was just super low key, bare bones. It was more eyes will equal more ears on my music, because I wasn't in a band. I'm not a virtuoso guitar player. I'm gonna have to work for anybody who listens to my music. YouTube, I mean, and kind of growing up in the time I did, you too, you see where the music industry was going, and you're like, you're not going to be able to take that traditional route. I'm not going to get a record deal. I need to find a creative way to build an audience. And I'm like, well, YouTube, let's do that.
yeah, YouTube
So
is a
I did that,
great way.
and it's sort of developed into what it is now, which is like way more. It's community based, really. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm everything I've learned to make my music, I like to share, and I'm helping people, and people like that, and it's reciprocated,
yeah,
and we've created this community. So I have to some degree pivoted.
right.
It's not all about my music. It's not a Nick Hill track every month. It should be, but it's not. The fact of the
Yeah,
matter is the community is kind of dictated in a good way where the channel is gone, and I get enjoyment out of helping people be creative, and it also has forced me to make sure that I still stay creative and relevant and up
yeah.
on how things are going. So
Do you think that it has in any way positively or negatively impacted your personal creative ability?
I I would
I'm
say,
talking long or big game, like
yeah, if we're talking,
not immediate gratification.
it is definitely impacted in a positive way. I
Right.
feel like had I not have the channel, I would not have put out as much music as I've put out, and that's a fact. It's probably a fact.
Yeah. I
Um,
feel that, but
yeah.
like I'm just curious what your personal thoughts on it are.
I mean, in the micro, sometimes it feels like it gets in the way, but but in the macro, that's not the case.
Yeah.
It pushes me to be better at production, better at video, more efficient, and it also pushes me to put out more music because that's the initial point. You know, probably a fact, exactly. um, it really pushes me in every regard because I want to, you know, I don't always say like, well, I need more content, so I need to write a song, but sometimes that does happen, and it gets me past that. Like, we've talked about this before on different, in different videos and different live streams. Like sometimes you need to get past that moment of like, well, I'm just not, I have writer's block, or I can't come up with anything good.
Yeah.
Sometimes when you have this
Yeah.
YouTube
Don't
channel,
worry
it
about
kind
it.
of,
Just sit down
who
and write.
cares, dude? Just start doing something. You need to start doing something.
Yeah.
So it's enabled me in that way for sure. For
For
sure.
sure, eh?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I have to agree with all of your things. Like, I guess your first point being, if I were to summarize it, I would say have some kind of a plan. Doesn't even
Yeah.
have to be a good plan. But for me, I kind of had a little bit of a plan. I was like, and my plan, I guess, number one was to sort of connect with people.
Mm-hmm.
And some people would say audience building. I think when you're at the very, very beginning, you're not really building an audience, so to speak. I guess it influences that, but really you're just kind of connecting with people who are like you.
Yeah.
And I still do that. And I think you still do that. That's kind of your thing that's happening. Principal thing that happens with me is like I kind of just mostly connect with people who are like me or that I am like them or whatever. There's something they're doing that I'm just like, oh, that's really awesome. So, and the
Yeah. So
connections get easier to make as time goes on. But yeah,
I think it
um,
was pretty evident that you had more of a plan for your channel going into it than I did.
yeah, because my channel came out of sort of a mistake. Like I wasn't going to be a YouTuber. I
Mm.
never thought of it in a million years. I was like, I really just wanted to make music. But enough people close-ish to me were asking a lot of questions about what I was doing. And a lot of times the assumption was like, are you using like 8 strings? Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. What baritone? What? I'm
Right.
like, it's really simple. So I started making like little personal explainers, and some of those I'm like personal email, like I do emails at first, and then I
Yeah.
was like, I'm going to start a blog around this. So I started a blog on it because I'm like, this email would be a
But
great blog article that
yeah.
might be useful to somebody else. But then when I started making videos to explain things to other people, friends,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, it's going to be way easier if I just make a tiny little video about it. That's when I was like, oh, I'm into this, and of course I knew of YouTube, like I watch YouTube, but I'm like, oh, I get it. I
Yeah.
get, I get what people are doing on it. And I'm like, oh, now I'm going to do it. So I had that kind of, I was already moving with my music when I got to the YouTube thing. I wish I would have identified that YouTube was a thing that I could maybe do earlier.
Yeah.
Um, I was way too self-conscious though. I was super self-conscious. Actually, I'm
Same.
still a super self-conscious person.
Yeah. Same.
Um, I just found a way to not worry about it here. And
Mm-hmm.
in maybe most things, front facing, like as a very public person,
Yeah.
uh, you kind of just adjust to it after a while. But yeah,
I mean,
for for
Mine,
me, I would say the very first thing, if I was starting today, I
yeah,
would still do the same thing. I would focus on the connecting and building, like connecting with people through like I would explore all possibilities. And I would probably, still pick YouTube as a major thing. Um, but the other thing I would do that I didn't do at first is I would, think about the revenue part of it
mm,
early. I didn't think about the revenue part about it early. And then I was trying to catch up with myself by having everything in place after. Like I didn't have a PayPal account for so long. I didn't have like all this stuff that you should have.
yeah,
And um,
yeah. I think I was kind of the same way, and I'm still playing catch up in that regard.
right. But, you know, when it's early on, you're kind of uncomfortable with money and stuff like that. But
Mm-hmm.
really quick, really soon into it, you realize like money is really important to consider. And there's all kinds of different ways to generate different revenue streams. Um, so I would, if I was starting today, I would make sure that I, had a PayPal account, maybe even a Stripe account. Um, and just like think about like what are the potential earnings, like threadless. I would start a threadless account right away. I
Right.
would start any kind of and it doesn't matter if there's sales, like on day one, and you have zero fans or zero connections or zero audience. It's like you're
Mm-hmm.
just no, not even your friends know what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
um, doesn't matter. I would just have it there, and so that once things do get going, it's been there the whole time, and it's not like this new thing out of the blue. Um, so I would consider that if I were to jump into all of that right now, um, like
Yeah.
jump into being a solo artist with a focus on the internet right now, I would take care of those two things, like the connecting. What do I have to do to connect with people, and what do I have to do to generate revenue? Um, and the generating revenue, I wouldn't make it a priority to actually make sales right off the top, but I would put the stuff
You just
into
want that
motion.
infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
You want to be ready
Yeah.
because, I mean, you taught me this too. Like people want like your stuff.
OnlyFans.
Yeah. Yeah. People want Bunn stuff. People want Nick stuff, which I still find
Yeah.
weird, but they do. So like,
Yeah. I think
get over that.
people like what you're doing and maybe appreciate what you're doing. I
Yeah.
think that's the case for both of us. They're like, oh, I like the thing that you're doing, and I kind of want to try and kick in. And some people just like the stuff too.
Right.
You never really know. You never know who your fans are, or who likes what you like, what you do.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have to be fans. Maybe they just like a single thing that you do. Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Right.
But you never know who that is, and you don't get to choose who that is, and you don't get to choose why either. And
Right.
that's something that I actually didn't really contemplate for a really long time. And as soon as you do, I feel like I got way more comfortable with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I still don't put much thought into that. Um. Yeah. It's
Like,
interesting.
why are people interested in what you're doing? You don't really ever know, and you don't need to know. You just be very thankful and keep making things.
Yeah.
And
I think
you also don't get to choose what the
right.
reasoning is.
And I think you've said this in like Into the Unknown more than once, and I think I've said it too. It's like if you're doing the things that you are getting enjoyment out of and you're fulfilled with it, it will attract like-minded people. Or some part of it will draw people in.
Yeah,
So as long as you are behind it, you're not doing it just for views or for streams or whatever, because if as long as you're genuine at heart with it, I think whether or not it doesn't matter. If you're just going into
Yeah.
it with a genuine approach, people will glom onto that. They'll see that. They'll appreciate it for what it is.
Yeah.
And
I think the easiest way to kind of think about that is to uh, prioritize satisfying your personal creativity and your personal curiosity
yeah,
surrounding the items that you're tasking yourself to. And
right.
if you seek to satisfy those things, you may not always succeed. But if you
Hmm.
seek to satisfy those two things, then being genuine and sincere and all of these sorts of things, I think comes natural out of that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. And Dylan actually, an outside perspective uh, fortifies that idea.
right. And I mean that kind of goes. Dylan brings up that's a good point. Um, and how you kind of jumped in with that community in mind, with that helpful kind of, I'm going in this to help people and build this community around this pretty niche thing. I kind of stumbled into that like several videos in when I started
Right.
like doing Helix stuff.
Right.
Whoa,
The
pooches are mad up
Poochies.
there.
Nick
They can
has
hear me.
two dogs now.
They can
He has
hear
a
me.
new
Yeah,
Poochie.
we have a new Poochie, and he's very vocal. He can hear me down here.
I like it. Where are the dogs at? I like it.
Yeah. Shit. Now I got
JW,
to
JW, how are you?
J Dubs. What's up, brother?
Welcome. By the way, for those of you all joining us at the moment, this is a new podcast series that we are piloting, live stream podcast. We might chop it up and actually put it out to services as a podcast after the fact.
Yeah.
We're piloting this. This is sort of the thing. Um, but
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
it's called Bandless, and this is episode 1.
I was saying, several videos in, I kind of fell into that like, oh, I can help people, and that could lead to other things. Like, hey, I know how to do this. I'll show people. I think the first thing that I realized that was like, I created a video on how to create an aggregate device, something super
Right.
nerdy on the Mac.
Yeah.
And people were like, "Oh my gosh, thanks so much." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And then would get questions, and I'm like, "Well, I know how to do this. I can help with this." And I would
Yeah.
put a video out on it. And then when I got my Helix, the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that really blew up. And I'm such a nerd. I put so much time into it that I was able to answer a bunch of people's questions. So I just started making videos on it. And
It's
yeah, then
awesome.
it kind of that's when I was like, okay, it's not just going to be about my music. It's going to be also about helping people make their music. So
Yeah. And from that, I'm certain, like I have a list of people in mind, but there's like people that you have connected with that have become, maybe you've never met them, but they're pretty much friends. Well, I guess that's you and me.
oh, I mean, yeah, we're the best example of that.
Through doing exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Um,
is amazing.
yeah, it really is, man, because we're kind of like best friends and we've never met in real life.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. I feel like you're like my number one homie,
I know, it's
like
so
in the
crazy
holster, I got,
how often
I
we
got a
talk
target. I
and
just like call up Nick Hill, be like,
yep.
yo, what should I do?
Yeah, we do kind of help each other through like this stuff that we're going to talk about on this podcast or live stream show is,
Yeah.
you know, and we're not trying, it's not a woe is me thing. Like, we know this is YouTube. We
Yeah,
volunteered for it.
for sure.
We understand the stakes. But,
Yeah.
a lot of the people who follow me and follow you, they're kind of maybe trying to do this on some level, and it's not always easy. Like,
No.
there's life, there's,
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's the biggest thing that gets in the way of all your creative endeavors.
Yeah. And it's really hard. And I hope that we can kind of use this platform a little bit to maybe inspire
Yeah.
folks through that stuff. Because I know for me and I know for you that it has been really, really, really difficult to get anywhere. But it's so worth the effort. Even like I'm not making a pile of loot. You're not making a pile of loot. It's
Not
not
by
really
any
about
stretch.
that, but it
Right.
has been positive for my life in ways I I
Absolutely.
can't
Like
even, yeah, I have no
it,
words for it.
it's yeah, it is we're certainly not in it for the money. Um
Well, I am interested in making money. I will be
yes.
really upfront
y-
about that because it's important to
Yeah, so
survive.
this is also a very interesting thing that I clearly still am a little uncomfortable talking
I
about.
noticed that, yeah.
Like
And
I don't
you reside in the USA, the land of
yeah.
opportunity, and I live in socialist Canada. It should be flipped.
Yeah. Yeah, right? But th- we've talked about this at nauseum together,
Yeah.
but I'm always like I just want this to sustain itself. That's my goal.
Right.
Um and I guess when you think about it, the ultimate level of this sustaining itself is making enough money to do it all the time.
And to keep doing it better.
Right.
I definitely am interested in that part. Like I would like to do it better always, to keep upping the game.
Exactly.
But
Exactly. So what I'm getting at is like, while I'm still uncomfortable talking about that, it's not a bad thing, you know? It's not a,
money's not a bad thing.
yeah,
People do bad things with money, but money itself is autonomous, in terms of it. Money has no intention.
yeah,
But there are people who do awful things with money, and there are people who do incredible things with money, um, whether it be through giving or sharing or inspiring, whatever. Doesn't really matter. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can be positive with money,
yeah,
and
for
it
sure.
doesn't even have to be sort of good Samaritan stuff. It could be designing and manufacturing an explicitly amazing tool that helps people do some kind of a job or a task really, really well or more effectively or whatever. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to take a second to address, say hello to folks in the chat before we move
Yeah.
on to the next point
Yeah.
here?
We got some people joining
Just
up.
say hello. Hello, everyone. Maybe you can, respond like, just talk with people for a second. And I'm going to queue up the second point here for
Yeah.
our big convo that I'm going to pose you a big question.
Oh shit. Okay. J Dub says I refuse to take the first step. Have all the gear and stuff, just scared. Shitless to take the leap. Yeah. Listen, man. Everybody. I mean, I put it off. I put off putting out music for that very reason for multiple years, and by the time I finally got over it, I wished I would have just gotten over it sooner. It's easy for me to say on this side of it, but we all kind of go through that. And you have to also go into it with a certain level of expectation. No one's going to see it at the beginning. No one's probably going to hear it at the beginning. And you're not going to be as good as you possibly can be or as good as you will be 5 to 10 years down the road. So if you go into it with those expectations,
Long game.
yeah, you got to think long game. You got to think macro. You got to think like you can't go into something. It's like I tell my kids this stuff all the time. Now they're 19 and 17, but so they're not really kids. But when they're in that adolescent age, anything they picked up, they just expected to be good at. And I'm like, whoa, bro, that's not how this works. Like, you're gonna suck at first. There are gonna be some things that you can get better at faster. Like my youngest son got really good at skateboarding way faster than I ever did, and he surpassed any level I was at almost instantaneously. But, I love using skateboarding as an analogy is because when it comes to tricks on skateboard, you suck at it more than you're good at it. But it's
Even when
sucking at
you're
it all
really
that
good.
yeah, sucking at it all that time is what gets you to land it cleanly. So you just have to expect I'm gonna slam my shins a bunch. I'm
Yeah.
gonna I'm gonna primo a bunch. You have to look at it that way, skateboarding terms. But it's with anything, with video work. My videos go back and watch some of my early videos, guys. They're not great. even 2 years ago. They're not great.
Yeah.
But you chip away. You chip away at getting better, and just go into it like, "Ugh, okay, it's not the greatest in the world,
Yeah.
but I need to be here to get here to get here to get here." Very
You know,
few of
I
us
really
can
look
just
forward.
jump at the beginning, or steps. Go ahead.
I really look forward to like doing like not just the next thing, but doing the next thing better. Like the things that you picked up on the last thing you did, you're like, oh, this, that, and the other thing. But it's too late to kind of apply all of what you picked up in the last thing on the last thing, other than redoing the whole thing. And I have done that, and I don't think it's worth it. But yeah,
Yeah.
applying what you've picked up on the next thing and being like, oh, that's going to be sick. Like could be recording tracks. It could be like a new technique or a new approach to guitar playing. Could be the way that you're going to do graphics or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So looking forward to doing kind of better on the next thing is, I think, super sweet.
Yeah, it is now that we're on this side of it. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
now we can realize like, hey, I'm at a point where it's not complete crap, but I know I want to get better and I'm trying to get better. And a couple years down the road, we'll be able to look back and say like, wow, I can see that now,
Right.
But it's the forest for the trees type of thing. A lot of people are they're kind of, reiterating a lot of people are like, well, so Jake says, I'm a perfectionist. I struggle with the same issue. I'm never happy enough with how my music turns out. Like we do that all the time. Bunn tells me all the time, like, this song, I don't like how this song turned out. And I'm like, what?
I don't
What are you
like
talking about?
almost any of them.
Yeah. And I'm sure.
But I
Bunn
like
will
what I
say-
do though.
Yeah.
Like I need to be clear. Like I like the music that I make. I'm just never fully satisfied with my details about my output. So I just want to be clear on that. Like I'm not a self-loathing,
No, it's not.
self-deprecating
It's
person.
not that. It's not
Yeah.
even that because, I mean, I do the same thing to you. I know what I'm capable of. I know I'm capable of writing good stuff, catchy stuff. But
Yeah.
you'll hear it from me too. Like, I'm like, ugh, I don't know, just the same old shit. And you're like, dude, no, it's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Relax.
Just move on.
Yeah.
Stay stoked. Move on. But yeah. So I'm going to, are we cool to move on to
Yeah,
the next
let's
thing?
move on. Yeah.
Okay. So this is a big one, Nick Hill. If you were starting today, knowing what you know now, but you had never done anything before, like you haven't achieved any of what you've achieved currently, what you would say are the most important skills that you would need? Maybe like a top 3. You can go more, but maybe we'll start with a top 3. We can put them into order after.
Yeah.
If in the conversation we discover like the order is like maybe this was the more important one for me, but top 3 most important skills that you would either A, be employing, or B, have to learn.
Yeah. I think if I'm being completely realistic, I think it's nerdy and boring. Organization is probably if I was better at organization, if I was going into something like being organized is one
Being
thing.
organized?
Yeah. An aesthetic look for my videos.
Art direction.
Art direction.
Yeah. And that can extend to everything that you do.
Yeah, that is like an overarching type of thing that
Right.
that to me I see as pretty important. It's gonna really come into play with my projects this year going forward.
Yeah.
Now that I kind of realize, to me, how important it is, and how it's your impression. It helps with your impression, to other people.
I think it's less of it reduces the barrier too. Like if you have articulate art direction also maybe a stylish art direction, it's less of a barrier for people to take a chance on you if they don't know you,
Yeah.
and more potentially more pleasing or more disruptive or more interesting or whatever, whichever way you want to go. But so far we got spreadsheets, organization, time
Organization.
management, all that stuff. We have art direction.
Yeah.
Number three, most
It would
crucial skill. I think I know what it is, but you're starting today.
I would just put more effort into being a better producer and a musician.
Yeah. The actual music creation.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's probably if I were to rank it, that would definitely be at the top.
The music creation would be the number one.
Yeah, because it's sort of like, when people say when you're creating a video, if you can have a semi crappy video, but if the sound is good, they'll overlook some of the shortcomings. I think if the music is good, some of that other stuff is not as important initially.
Right.
But
And question for you regarding the music. Are you more in the mindset that the production value, meaning the sonics and the audio quality, are more or less important than the composition and delivery of the musical performance?
I think it's more about
Or maybe both.
composition and the vibe first and foremost.
Right.
Now, I mean, look, the best example I can give is punk. There's a lot of amazing punk that sounds like crap, but you don't care.
Yeah, and it's awesome.
And it's the vibe, it's the energy, it's the groove, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think focusing on completing stuff, putting catchy, not catchy in a negative term, but like, putting stuff together that you can yourself groove to is probably ranked a little bit higher than overall production sound. Now, you want your productions to get to a point where they sound good. They're not off-putting, but
right.
It's also one of those subjective things. Like, some people love a big, roomy, spaced out drum sound, and it might fit a certain vibe, and in other times that just doesn't fit. So it doesn't matter, really.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, but it does matter, So it's got to be something as long as you're pursuing the improvement of your productions, it doesn't matter if it doesn't sound perfect or even close to it, or good even.
There's like the perfection topic. Most people who are at the top of the game will always share that, good, like done is better than perfect. We hear that a lot, like a lot.
It's true.
Like, yeah.
It's super true.
So,
I mean, I think it's a lot of people's biggest hurdle is starting/finishing things,
Right.
If you don't ever finish anything, you're never going to know what you can improve upon. That's the other thing.
Right.
Like, if I was to put out no music, how can I compare my first mix with the one I just put out in December, So.
Yeah. Which is interesting to kind of pose it that way, because
yeah, and I don't mean
I think it puts into pardon?
I don't mean it in a negative way. I know how
No, I think it's actually really beneficial. Like, there's definitely been a phase in my life where I was sort of stuck on getting things out or done because I was so concerned with production value. And so I wasn't putting out anything. And it was the time I came out of working in professional studios, like big studios, SSL consoles, Studer tape machines, everything you could imagine, all the best stuff. And that was my experience for a number of years as an assistant engineer and then a sort of junior engineer. And then studios took a poop because Pro Tools happened, like Pro Tools really happened.
Yeah.
And overnight, like, studios started closing.
Right.
because a lot of the engineers left to start their own small studios with Pro Tools. You know, for 30 grand, 40 grand, they were in the game.
Yeah.
And it kind of started before that with ADATs and DA88s. DA88s were the Tascam version of the ADAT. ADAT was like essentially a VCR that recorded 8 tracks of music.
Can you guys hear that? Give me
Oh,
a
it's the
second.
dogs.
Yeah, give me a second. I'm going to throw you up there. Hold up. I'll be right back.
I like it. But yeah, when I came out of working in big studios, I was stuck for a long time. And the whole thing was like trying. I thought in my own music where I didn't have this gear, I only had my own little Pro Tools studio, that I had to somehow still do what I was doing in the $1 million studio. And nothing was happening. And like Nick says, I had nothing to compare. I didn't even know if I was getting better because I wasn't putting anything out because I was stuck in that weirdness. But I'm going to grab a few comments here while Nick is dealing with the dogs. Jake, I try to put out as much effort into my video portion as I do into the songwriting portion. Yeah. And what's interesting about that, Jake, is I feel like creativity is not bound in a medium. And if you exercise your creativity in that way, you'll realize that the creativity that you apply in music, a lot of the ideas or motivations that you have for the choices that you make in music will be relevant in video or in graphic design or otherwise. The skills are different, but the creative motivation or the aesthetic that you develop or consider might be very much the same or similar, or have a similar process in the creative process. So yeah, I think you're 100% onto a great thing by identifying, like, putting the same kind of thing into both places. Weathered and Wise. How are you, Weathered and Wise? I hope you're well. This is True for Punk. Was awesome getting to hear as Fat Records started shaping a sound. Yeah. You know, those early Lagwagon, No Effects, Strung Out, Propagandy, like all those first records, man, they reshaped the world. And, you know, No Effects was, or not No Effects, what am I saying? Not irrelevant thought. But they reshaped the world, and a whole new movement in music kind of came out of that. And it affected me where I was living. I was living way up in North Ontario, Canada, in the snow. And we had a California style, Fat Records style band, but ours didn't sound quite like theirs. But that was a good thing. But it influenced us in a huge way. And it was about the writing and the energy and all that. And the production just was okay, but that's all it needed to be.
Sorry.
Greg Ginn, guitar tone is painful, but I love Black Flag. Yeah. Mike Hoover, like Black Flag was a really important band to me, so I can get behind that. Nick, how's the dogs? How's the poochies?
Yeah, the thing is, again, see, life sometimes.
Life gets in the way.
Doesn't always want to go along with our plans. We got a new pooch. He's a really good boy. He was clearly abused at some point. So he's gotten super attached to me, and he hears me down here talking, and he was just howling like I've never heard him before. He's a quiet dog, so he's like up there,
Yeah.
"Woo, woo," and then howling, and I'm like, oh God.
He's like,
But-
I need to be with my homie Nick Hill.
Yeah, but he won't
know?
come down the stairs. He's afraid of the stairs, so
He'll figure it out.
he will.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you guys talking about? Again, sorry about that. Yeah, that's,
Yeah, no worries.
you just got to roll with it, you know?
Yeah. But Dylan brings up a great point. You'll never stop learning about production and techniques and gear. And that is 100% true. It is always moving, and it's always exciting. If your perspective is in that direction, like if you're kind of positive and stoked about it, it will always be exciting.
Yeah.
but some people get frustrated that things are always changing. I think maybe less so now, but you know, you can also find kind of your process and your thing. I have a friend up here, Greg Dawson. He has a studio, BTW Studios, and he puts out a lot of big records. Like he works on a lot of big records. He's a pretty serious producer, and he has the exact same PC. I think it's an XP PC that he's been recording on for God knows when. And I think he still has the same old version of Cubase. And
wow.
But like all of the stuff he has sounds really good and works really well.
I mean, and that's at the end of the day what it's all about.
Yeah. And he has a sound. Like people hire Greg Dawson not because he's using a antiquated antique PC. They hire Greg Dawson because he has such a great sound, and his work ethic is great. His attitude is great. That's another huge thing.
Huge,
like
man.
He's such a good hang.
That's
like
a whole show we could
with
do
Greg
that
Dawson.
on.
You're like, yeah, sign me up.
Yeah, yeah. Like not being an asshole is one of the best attributes you can have in this whole thing. You know?
And going full reverse of that, being like a stoked person who's interested in
showing some
in the human experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Synth Chris is in the stream. Synth Chris knows all about this process.
Yeah, he made a good point too. I missed it.
I can kind of see the comment.
I'll bring it up.
I don't know how to. There we go.
He says, plus if you put it out, people can give you feedback on the mix and writing and everything, then you can improve more. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. You know, you gotta...
And what's interesting about that point is sometimes the feedback is sort of passive feedback, meaning people aren't going to necessarily say anything, but they will listen to a certain song over and over and over again. And you'll, as the artist, you'll kind of see it in the stats, and you're like, what is it about that song that people are gravitating towards? And kind of might, you know, influence you to take a look at that material that you've created in a different way and deconstruct it, and maybe understand something about that material that you created that you weren't aware of.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Like, if you look at it that way and you're thinking like, man, or think about a song that individually, everybody in the chat, a song that you know you really, really love, or it gives you some sort of like, you know, you get some visceral reaction. And then you know that there's people that you play, listen to this song, and they're like, you know how often that happens to me and my wife? I play her song, and she's like, I don't know if I like that. And I'm like I hate, I'm like, what? There are people who will hear your song that you don't think is good enough, or sounds good enough, or is finished enough, and have a wonderful reaction to. And because you haven't finished it, you're depriving them of it. So you just never know how people are going to respond or react to your stuff.
Yeah, you'll never know why, how, when, who, for what reason. Like, you'll never know.
And
just get it out there.
There's one sure way that you'll know that people don't like it. It's if you don't put it out. You know?
Yeah, they definitely don't like it because that's a guarantee.
Yeah, Dylan makes a good point again. He said it's funny when we talk about old DAWs, or OSs, or computers. Just because there are new bells and whistles doesn't mean great sounding music wasn't being made on the old equipment. Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, like we were talking about Steve Albini the other day. You know, he was very analog. He was he might still be going to tape. You know.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's a big tape guy. And he just likes the sound of all of that stuff. I get the sense with Steve Albini that he's interested in sort of a holistic approach to music, and analog fulfills that for him. Certain kinds of analog, not just any old analog gear. Like he has choices.
His setup, yeah.
Yeah.
He's curated his sound through his gear.
Yeah.
And it's funny because whenever I see anything with Steve Albini, I drop what I'm doing and I watch it, because I would love to work in that environment, an analog environment, you know, like the hiss and the sound and the grit and
Right.
just everything that's associated with it.
And that's
But I could
interesting to
record
hear.
anything that I wanted here, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm always like, I'm interested in that topic because at this point in history, there are tons and tons of people that I either become friends with or acquainted with or just have conversations with, in the whole sort of like analog versus digital. And I don't mean it like the two things against each other. I just mean as contrasting technologies and ideas and aesthetics and all that kind of stuff, just like as a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time in that world
Yeah.
on huge analog consoles, a lot of vintage gear. I've worked on Neves. I've worked on Studer 2-inch tape machines. I've worked on all the SSLs. I've worked on all of it. All
Yeah.
of the gear that people like drool about, like imagine I could get this 60s compressor or whatever. I've used it for sure.
Yeah.
And so one thing about that world that I can definitely say, like $1 million studio, is it was pretty hard to get a bad sound. Number one.
Right.
Number two, though, is it was configured in such a way, environmentally and technologically, that progress is very slow unless you have a team of people.
Mm-hmm.
So as the way that we work, it's not a favorable
It's
environment.
not conducive. Right.
No, I would never be able to do what I do now
No.
that way.
No. No.
And I favor the creativity. This is just a personal thing. It's not. So why do I favor digital? I think it sounds pretty good. Like it sounds good enough. But I favor the creative opportunity that it affords me. It affords me infinite creative opportunity.
Yeah. And that goes along with, like you said, having a certain outlook on something. Like, you can argue till we're blue in the face about whether digital sounds better than analog, amp-wise, especially.
Right.
But what it boils down to is like, is it allowing you to be your creative self? Is it getting out of the way? And you've said this now. The more and more people ask you about amps and stuff, it's like I'm on the stomp and I'm using it because it is just I can go.
Yeah.
I can just go.
Completely out of my way.
Yeah.
And it sounds good.
Exactly.
So sounds good enough. Are there things that sound better? Maybe. But like it sounds good enough that I'm satisfied and I'm like, I'd rather just think about being creative.
Exactly. And that's kind of like with each of our setups, we've kind of built that to just allow us to be creative because we're alone, we can't run out to a room and move a mic and then run back to, this is just how we have to do it. And that's fine. And that's cool.
Yeah. I prefer this.
We're lucky.
Setup. Yeah.
We're lucky. Yeah.
So
see, I'm ignorant. I have no real world experience.
Actually, your perspective is very useful in that regard because it's so different than my perspective. So we can compare.
Mm-hmm.
We can compare honestly.
And the thing is, though,
what it means to you, what it means to me, and get a sense of how that actually contrasts out there in the world.
That's all. But yeah, exactly. And we do have the luxury of doing that, and it helps both of us. But something that I've done in my studying of this has been studying real studios and production engineers, sound engineers, and what their job is and what they do. I mean, I've learned about all the mics that a Helix or Axe Effects and the speakers.
Yeah.
I've learned about all those speakers. I've heard them in real life. I wanted to know about them, because it helps you in the digital realm too,
Yeah.
So like I learned as much as I possibly could about real production studios for years.
Well, digital is so good now that I feel we've talked about this before, where the realism is so close, in some cases indistinguishable, that I think it sets you up for developing good ears for this analog world. If you find yourself in the analog world, you can make production choices, technical engineering choices that are in line with your experience, even though your experience has been virtual.
Yeah.
So it's a different time now. It's a very amazing time now.
Yeah, for sure. Dylan makes a good point, and I kind of concur. He says, digital gear. I grew up on digital gear in favor of its convenience, but I won't lie that nothing has ever matched the visceral experience of a tube amp blowing air through a 4x12. I would agree with you.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I have that right here.
One of the nearest and dearest memories I have is playing on stage, playing bass in a band, and feeling my bass, feeling what I'm playing.
It's a good vibe.
No Helix will ever replace that, and I would never say that it could. You know what I mean?
When I play my Helix through the effects loop, through my 412,
yeah,
it's
Same.
two 212s, but they're oversized 212s. It's giant sounding.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the
It's
thing.
crazy.
That's what one day I can't wait to do, is to do that, to like shuffle through all these amps, sending it through real speakers.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna wrap up that one topic.
Yes, moving
so
on.
what top 3? So for you, it is organization. What are the top 3 things that are the most important skills? Top 3 skills to have if you were starting today.
Yeah.
And going forward today. And so you're saying organization, scheduling, just like focus, and
just an overall having plans and scripting like you do, templates, overall organization.
Yeah. You're saying scripting or organization. The second one was...
What was the second one?
I can't remember.
Shit. Well,
Third
apparently-
one was production, attitude. Number 1, attitude. Yes, it is very important.
Yeah, like I was saying, Chris, we could have a whole show just on your attitude and philosophical
Your
approach
mental
to
fitness.
things.
Philosophical game.
Yeah, I don't remember what number 2
What
was,
was
but
the
number
second
3
one?
was production and music. What was the second one? Shit. Well,
Skills. It was another, I remember it was like a soft skill. It was, I was like, oh, that's a good answer.
Shit.
Damn it. And when I was summing this up, I had it in my mind, and I've forgotten
ruined
it.
it though. It was just the pooch, just this mega distraction. But
Pooch,
did you go over yours?
We'll go over mine.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll lodge the memory back.
Maybe.
But top 3 would be, like, for me, if I was starting today, number 1, like communication, verbal and written. So that means like emails and all that kind of stuff, social media, messaging and all that. And just...
Something I think you're already amazing at.
Yeah, I grew into it. I don't have very good fluid speech, but I do have enough pause to not say, or to sort of edit the things that might be insensitive, or might be just not well thought out. Like, I try to...
I'm not good at that.
As I communicate with people on things, always try to consider their perspective. And I don't think I did that as much before. I was always worried about what people might think of me rather than think about them.
Yeah.
So I think number 1 for me is communication, and it could, like I say, it could be in actual voice or it could be written, but the big thing for me has always been, or has become, through doing business communications. My job has a lot to do with sort of sales, I guess. I'm not really a sales guy, but I am the sort of sales representative in a way. So the sale is made, but then I take care of everything.
Yeah.
And it's pretty technical. A lot of the stuff is technical. Self-awareness. Yes, absolutely. Production value. That was the third one. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. I still.
But
Was it video?
number one thing is communication. And for me, going forward,
Yeah.
and considering the other person first, even if you don't know the other person. It's like, I don't know who's going to pick this up, but I suspect it's going to be somebody who has similar interests to me, but maybe in a completely different country with different customs, or different, maybe they speak a different language and English is the second language. Or maybe it is, you know, a woman, or maybe like, maybe it's not what I absolutely know in myself. So I try to consider that
Yeah.
when I'm speaking, as much as possible. There's only so much you can do, but it's like, I think even a little bit of consideration is very worth it. But
Absolutely.
it's difficult though, you know, and I don't know too many people who are perfect at it.
Well, it's a muscle that you
Some
have
people
to,
are pretty good at it, but
you have to practice.
yeah.
You definitely have to practice it.
But yeah, doing this whole thing, communication is a big part of it, and it's difficult to navigate. So considering it early, and I think just giving it consideration at all helps a lot.
Yeah.
And you're not really, until you get into it, you don't really realize how big of a part of it is.
Right. Gene says patience. Yeah. That's huge.
Yeah.
It kind of goes along with it. You need to have patience.
Yeah.
You know.
And then for me, if I was starting today, what would be the biggest skills that are very important? So I agree with you. The admin organization thing, very, very important. In the very beginning, I didn't do spreadsheets. Like, I didn't do schedules. Now
Yeah.
I do schedules. And it's not like I sit down and I just follow the schedule exactly and check off the boxes or whatever, but I can open it up and have a week in view. I'm like, what am I doing this week?
Yeah.
I don't, you know, like, and just having a picture of it is way easier. And if you want to change, like if you want to pivot on one day and go off in another direction, then you just rewrite the schedule.
Right.
But having a clear vision of what you're tasking yourself to, especially if revenue is important to you. This is something that I've only come to realize recently. In terms of, as you get along with the music thing, if you're on the side where you're like, I want to turn my creative life into more of my gig and replace my day job with my creative life, whatever that might be. Could be making music, could be YouTube, could be a mix of all of it. I don't know. For me, I'm mostly interested in the music side, and the YouTube is sort of the bird that is always flying around that nest.
Yep.
That's an amazing
It's actually
analogy.
a pretty good analogy. It's a pretty tweet analogy.
But yeah, I've noticed with scheduling or organization of your sort of bigger picture activities, you're like, okay, well, I have this bill due, this gear is broken, I need a repair on this thing, whatever, like I have to pay for XYZ. There's a lot to pay for, especially in addition to your regular bills, right? So
Yeah.
I schedule that stuff as well. And so I also, through all of that, like if I know what I have to spend money on all the time, then I know how much I have to make a priority of the sort of revenue side of what I'm doing.
Right.
And thankfully, I think what makes it easy for me, and I think this is similar for you, is there are so many small little areas where there is revenue, so many different small streams that I don't have to like, be aggressive about any
Right.
one of them, which
Yeah.
I think is a bit of a buzzkill if you're an artist.
Yeah.
It always has been for me anyway. And I think, I'd like to hear what other people in the stream are like. What's your attitude about money and making money as an artist? Is it an uncomfortable conversation? Let's say you play a gig and you got to get paid at the end of the gig. Who's comfortable to just go up to the promoter and be like, yo, it's like, I'm here to collect.
Yeah. I mean, even when I do video work before, the pandy,
Yeah.
I was never super comfortable with like, hey, it's time to give me some money. And everybody I ever worked with was more than willing to pay me what I wanted.
Yeah. Which is an interesting thing. Hey.
Yeah. So it's like, you shouldn't feel bad, but we do.
Yeah. Like we were talking about
beginning.
before, like money itself is not positive or negative. It's like people's attitudes about money are positive and negative, and people's uses of money is positive or negative.
Yeah.
And I don't have any control over that, so all I can do as an artist anyway, like where I was traditionally very uncomfortable with money, all I can do is choose to take a look at it from a different point of view and look at how important it is to me doing more. So yeah, Chris, good not topic, comment. The power of asking. But it's always good to come to an agreement before the event project starts. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is the power of asking. But I guess like what your second point is the timing of the ask makes everything easier, better, more comfortable.
Yeah, if you set things up at the beginning, it probably does make it a lot easier to say, hey, okay, the job's done.
Yeah.
Give me my money.
Gotta pay them bills.
Yeah. Gotta get paid. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, money is an important thing in this world. I live in a semi-socialist country, but it is definitely capitalist. People are like, oh, socialist Canada. I'm like, it's pretty cutthroat here, man.
Socialist. It is, but there isn't a huge difference.
No. There are, like investors and all those guys who are high on coke and will stab you in the back to get on top of you and ahead of you.
Yeah.
They'll do whatever it takes. They're the same Silicon Valley types are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a few socialist chill vibes.
Chill vibes. Yeah.
But yeah, so to summarize this here section, top 3 skills that I would focus on in starting today. Today's day 1, and I'm going to go out and do this music stuff. It would be the communication, the admin and organization. And the admin and organization serves not only my productivity, but also the fitness of the business that I'm attempting to build, I suppose. Mm-hmm. The admin and the organization are very important. It's the glue of all things. And then my third point, it's the same as you, is recording. And that's just a catch-all. Recording, mixing, mastering, production in general, playing. Like, to me, recording is just the whole musical thing.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Getting comfortable with that stuff. And I noticed earlier in the chat, there were a few people really uncomfortable with the recording part, the Reaper thing, or like just not even the Reaper thing, just the DAW, because Reaper is just like any other DAW. It's not Reaper specific. there are some DAWs that are way more stripped down. Like Audacity is a very, 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 very simple DAW.
Yeah.
And it's free. And even GarageBand is a very simple DAW. It's also a pretty good DAW.
I found J-Dub. It's J-Dub's comment. He says, I can
Right.
play guitar, good with photography, have a great camera. The DAW just pisses me off. Currently looking for something less complicated compared to Reaper.
Yeah.
J-Dub,
So,
I think you're going to be headed in the wrong direction as far as complexity goes.
yeah.
Because
Well,
I
Reaper
think,
is as complex as you want it to be, because beautiful thing about Reaper is it's infinitely configurable.
yeah, I guess I'm just saying I would hate for him to think that jumping to another DAW is going to be less complicated.
They're
Cause,
going to be the same. Well, you
yeah,
could go to with Audacity or GarageBand. And I think
right.
those are very simplified. All you do is press the record button and then pan and volume, and there's a little bit of post processing, but not much.
That could be a whole nother show in itself too, is like just you can incrementally dig into not just a DAW, like we could make it a little bit more wider, but like if we use DAW as an example, like what are the basic things you need to do?
Yeah, you've done a few videos on
Yeah.
kind of like Studio One and how I record guitars, all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. Something I think I'm going to do a few more recording kind of tutorial videos for
Yeah,
2021.
same.
Actually, a lot more. But one thing I've noticed is a lot of these tutorials, we're both guilty of it as well. I've tried to address it in the past, but I think I have a better mind for it now. But trying to address it from the very, very, very beginner perspective,
Yeah.
which I think is also beneficial to people further along, because there's a lot of things about the workflow and the nature of the technology that once you're kind of illuminated on it, you're like, oh, I see it all.
Yeah.
I see how it works. And
Yeah.
and if you just get a few of those things, because that's how it was for me. When I
Mm-hmm.
very, very first started, I was like, there's too many of the strips and
I
way too many
Yep.
dials. I'll never be able to do this.
Yeah, I
Because it
remember
was a
being
physical console, right?
yeah. Oh yeah, shit. So yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I was
Like
like, that's
that'd be
impossible.
even more intimidating. But I remember when I started on Reaper and I had it for several years,
Yeah.
and I remember being overwhelmed by it at the beginning. But I would chip away at like, okay, what do I need to do? I need to record two guitars. You know, how can I do that? You know, and then I remember like, okay, how can I cross edit these cuts? It was just I just took it step by step. And then the next thing I knew, a few weeks later, I was able to get a bigger chunk of work done, you know?
Yeah.
So, and you're always like Dylan said this too, you're always like learning stuff.
Yeah.
You
Never ever stops.
I just learned something about Studio One, something I've used forever, from my best friend Lenny, who, you know, he doesn't do anything on a scale like us, but he records and he writes music, and he showed me something, and I'm like, holy crap, I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea you could do that.
Yeah. I've
So,
learned a whole bunch of stuff from Artie, and Artie is like quite good now, but you know, he was pretty green to a lot of it for a long time. And you know, I had all this experience in studios or whatever, and there's been a few things he showed me. You can always learn from people, it, even if they are not as far along as you. Like everybody's approach is different, so there's interesting things, interesting workflows that evolve out of it.
yeah.
I like this comment.
Mm-hmm.
Who's this? Mike Hoover. I like
Yeah.
your I like kind of like where your head is at. We would have a good hang. Nick,
Mm,
we've covered this one a whole bunch.
yeah.
Option paralysis. What do you have to say?
It's simple. It
Yeah,
isn't, but it is.
it
Get
is.
rid of the options.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, pick three of any one thing.
Bunn has helped me in the last few months get rid of my IR paralysis. And
Yeah.
and it's not because I don't think they're better or worse than what I use now. It was just because it was distracting me from working.
Right.
And my preset packs, people said in the chat that they bought the preset packs. First of all, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. I hope you dig them. I hope they're helpful. I
Oh,
use
yeah.
stock cabs. I use stock cabs in them.
Yeah.
And I've gotten good with the stock cabs. So
Yeah.
that's 800 options I don't need to think about. Now, I also know about mics and speakers and shit like that. So I know where I'm going for
Yeah.
when it comes
which
to
helps.
IRs. But if you're just getting into it, you will immediately be overwhelmed by just the sheer amount, especially if you get own hammer, which I love. There's so many options.
Amazing.
Their pack, if you are, and let me just say this real quick. Their pack on the Line 6 Marketplace, if you have a Helix, if you're using a Helix product, any of them, their pack on the Helix store is very stripped down, and I think that's the way to go. You want to just have a few options because you can make any of them sound good.
They all sound good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Synth Chris is like, yeah, he only uses 2 IRs. And the easiest way to keep it easy is to keep it easy.
I have 4 IRs that I almost always go to at the beginning.
Yeah.
And it took being paralyzed by all the options for a while, but then I'm like, I can't do this. I'm spending too much time sifting through folders.
Yeah, I think part of it too is before you really have the ears for it, like you're like, I don't know what all of these compressors are used for. I don't know what makes the difference. So you kind of got to work with them a little bit to learn, like, well, what do I need it for? I think maybe a better way to go is like, what is the compressor that people have always used for bass guitar? It's usually an 1176.
Yep.
Get an 1176. Forget about
approach it.
Yep. You know, what is the most popular EQ that people are using? Like, it's the EQ that you use, Pro Q. If you think that you need an outboard EQ, that's an amazing one. Just get the one that is really good and really popular. It might be expensive.
Instinctively, though, I think everybody's just assumes that they need to get third-party stuff, and that's not the case.
No, I use the Reaper EQs. I use a lot of the Reaper stock stuff, although I don't process stuff very much, even at all.
Well,
so
that's a whole nother topic, too. That's a whole nother thing. Yeah.
So it's a whole different thing. But,
man. Yeah. That's a
can of
worms.
To wrap up that thing, that header, that topic of top 3 skills to have in, from my perspective,
your
was
communication, your organization,
and your recording skills.
Yep.
And then for you, it was
organization,
aesthetics. Was that the second one?
That might have been it.
Like a goal? I think it was goals.
The important things were the communication or the organization and recording.
And the production.
Yeah. Production. So.
But I think all of that stuff, some of those things are not very exciting. They don't sound very exciting.
No.
Like communication and admin and organization
sounds dumb, but I find it to be one of my biggest hurdles, the lack of.
When you're on top of it, way more happens.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
absolutely
true? Yeah.
There's no denying it. Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I got another question for you. Actually, do we want to talk about some of the comments here? We've been sort of doing it as we go.
Yeah. There's a couple things since this is our first one, and we'll let everybody in on the nitty gritty of it. We were trying to keep it to a certain time. We've surpassed that now.
Oh yeah, what was our time? 1 hour.
We were going for an hour. We're at 1:26 so far.
What do we want to do?
We have a couple topics still. We have frequency and engagement, which I think are huge and should be talked about.
Okay.
So here's my real time shit. There's some good comments that I would like to engage with before we go. My question is, do we want to get into these topics, or do we want to bounce these last two because they could potentially fill a show to the next show? Consistency and engagement, frequency.
Oh, on the next show, we
Yeah.
cover this stuff.
Yeah.
And then we bounce at 9:30.
Yeah.
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 I'm okay with that. How do you guys feel about that in the comments?
Because there's a couple comments that we could probably easily get to our 9:30, no problem.
Yeah,
I
let's do
just
it.
feel like, I think, and it's definitely something I want to get more of your thought on. Like the engagement part, you kill, and I think it's worth talking about. You've really kind of coached me along with a lot of it too. And frequency and consistency is something we both go back and forth on,
Right.
and talk through ad nauseum. So I think those things could definitely
Fill a
show.
hole. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll do that
so-
next Wednesday.
So
By the way,
yeah.
this show is proposed to happen every Wednesday.
We're going to do this Wednesdays. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Same time. So, keep bringing your questions. It'll maybe it'll lead to a whole new show, another episode. Who knows?
Yeah. Oh, the comments are always so good in these streams.
Yeah, and I mean that's why we started doing this, is because we wanted to be, more behind the scenes, show you guys how we do things and how can it ultimately help you guys do the, kind of reach, the goals that you want to reach, and the endeavors that you are kind of diving into.
Awesome.
So why don't we just go through some comments before we sign off? Go back up a little bit. Poo Ninja says, make simple presets. Yes, I've definitely leaned in that direction. Synth Chris, this is where he said he only uses a couple IRs. Silver Burst is asking, would you guys consider going over subscribers' mixes and evaluating them on a live stream? Bunn, what do you think? All right, my initial gut reaction is I would not want my bluntness to stop people from trying.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fucking professional. And
yeah, I don't feel like I have enough to, I honestly don't feel like a lot of people have much to offer there. Like no matter how good they are. My answer is always going to be like, do it some more.
I can see why people,
no matter how good it is, even if it's amazing, I'm like, do it some more.
I can see why people want that, like Silver Burst. I understand why you're asking it. And
I don't think it's a bad question. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's something we wouldn't ever do. It's just, I still feel like some of my mixes aren't great, So
I almost never mix, so
yeah.
it's the demo mix. I'm like, that's what it sounded like when I was tracking.
Bring that question back next week. Let's just see how.
Yeah.
I appreciate the wanting to get feedback. So I think
maybe we can talk about process more.
Yeah.
Like, what's your process? Share your process. And then we can talk about process, because I think process is going to have a lot more of an effect on your successes or your development.
Maybe you and we can bring a track to one of these and go through it and show them what we're doing. And that might open some eyes or, raise some eyebrows. Either way, maybe that is a more productive and more beneficial to more people than just listening to your mix and saying like, because ultimately, if it sounds good, I'm just going to go, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Do it more.
And then what do you get from that?
Yeah. Or it sounds bad. Do it more. Again.
I would
the Nick Hill reps.
Yeah.
Even if you're good.
Doing it. Let's see.
But
more
podcast this show, lads. Yeah, Kermit, we're attempting to do that. Like we're probably going to do that. Turn it into an audio podcast as well.
Okay, Chris brings up the idea of
Discord.
the Discord again.
Yeah.
Again, it's something Bunn and I have talked about. Again, We get
Can we all talk about it
plates.
here?
It's plates, yeah.
I don't know a lot about Discord. I've used it only to chat with
Same.
you
Same. I'm
in
not
private
super.
type of like testing it out. And in podcasts, like I've been a podcast guest on a bunch of podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
they usually use Discord. So my question is, does it support real-time media that plays in a feed? So if there's a community on Discord and a person shares a video file or shares a audio file, is it easy for them to share those things? For me, it's very important for people to be able to share their media.
Mm-hmm.
And so that we can have conversations about things like production and all of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What is the facility in Discord for that kind of a thing?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a little digging. I know a
Do
lot
some
of people.
testing.
Yeah, I know a
Yeah.
lot of people have brought up Discord, and it's more. It seems like I think because your community and my community would love a central place to go to. So
Yeah,
I
it would
think
be fun.
that would be the kind of nucleus of it. And then if we can make it so people can share their mixes and get feedback from people. I mean, I see it, and I'm pretty sure I see it in Ola's Discord servers. So
Right. Okay.
maybe it's something we need
Yeah,
to.
I don't use it too much, and if like I don't use I don't hang out in social media or anything like that
Yeah.
too much. I have to be there on purpose.
Yeah.
So we also need to kind of talk about that kind of thing. Like I'm involved in the Baritone Obsessed Facebook group, and it's a private group. So I wouldn't do it if it wasn't private. Like it has to be private, which is similar in a way to like what the Discord is about.
Mm-hmm.
But it is Facebook, and a lot of people are having more and more difficulty with Facebook.
Yeah.
Anyhow, with that, I typically try to hang out there on Saturday mornings or Saturday afternoons for an hour or so.
Yeah.
Like I kind of schedule it in. There's a lot going on in my regular life as well as the Bunn thing. But that community is important to me, and I try to hang out there, but it is on purpose. Like I
Right.
do it on a schedule. It's not like I'm just waltzing in and out day to day
Right.
just because life doesn't allow it.
And I
So
think
if we
that's-
did a Discord thing, what does that mean?
Yeah, and I think that's what was my concern last stream you and I did. The Discord server was brought up
Yeah.
again, and I would just be, and my concern was like, well, what if I'm not in it often enough for people to feel like they're being engaged enough? But it
Well,
seems like maybe that's not. Maybe
I
that's
think, yeah, the
okay.
community can, will, like with the Facebook, Baritone Obsessed Facebook group,
Yeah.
there is a strong community there.
Yeah.
It doesn't center around me. I just was the guy who started it.
Right.
But it is its own community, and the
Yeah.
people there are what make it, and they show up to be around each other and to help each other and to share music with each other and collaborate and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool. But there's been an increasing interest in a Discord group. I'm not opposed to it. In terms of us being there or not being there, I don't know if it matters so much that way. But it does matter, like, just to manage it and keep it going. And how do we manage it? And also, like, if you want to hang out, make a schedule of like, it's important for me to hang out here because
Yeah.
I like these people.
Exactly.
I have a bunch of friends here. I meet and learn new things. Like, there's
It
all
seems
kinds
like
of benefits to it, right?
Yeah.
For
it seems
everyone.
like a lot of people love the idea of it, and it seems
Yeah.
like a good place to engage. And like you said, we don't need to be the facilitator all the time.
Yeah, well, Pooh Ninja,
Yeah.
maybe he could be a moderator. The management is usually the members themselves. Whoa.
Maybe that's, a few episodes from now, maybe that's something we can dig into. Like,
Yeah.
get some people in the chat who know what Discord's about, ideas on.
And we can figure out how to make the best group ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that we can do that collectively as a community.
That would be the way to do it.
Yeah. So we should hard schedule one of these Wednesdays to like bring in the most people who are interested in this idea. We
Yeah.
can build it with them.
Discord discussion. It's like, like anyone who's interested in this, show up to this live stream.
Yeah.
We're going to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
What it needs to be and what's important to consider in doing it. And between then and now, or now and then, is you and I will do our due diligence in researching as much about it as possible. Like I say,
Yeah.
I've used it. I have an account, but I've never dug into it. Like I just don't have.
Yeah, my only
time,
experience is
usually.
yeah, that's it. My only experience is being part of Ola's and
Right.
being on this side of it, and Ola's community is great. So I don't see why we couldn't build something as good, We'll see.
Poo Ninja, he's like, never give me a wrench.
No.
I'll abuse the power.
It needs to be
All right,
modded
noted.
well, but not by me. All right.
You can
yeah,
share links
well,
on Discord.
It's
Cool.
definitely something we've thought about and we're considering. So
Yeah. So yeah,
Maybe to-
Discord definitely is. We're gonna figure it out as a gang.
yeah, maybe in 2 weeks, 2 Wednesdays, like from now. We'll,
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
So we're gonna sign off.
Yes.
Today's topic was, if you were starting today, what are all of the things to consider? We didn't get through all of it. We're gonna kind of cap that off next week, next Wednesday,
Yes.
8 Central,
Your time.
my time,
7 p.m.
Eastern
Central
Standard?
Time.
Yeah.
You're on Eastern time, I think, right?
right? Eastern time, yeah,
Yeah.
Eastern Standard.
So 7 Central. So
7 Central is the better way
make
to
it
say it.
easy on
Yeah.
on every coast. That was the idea. So
Yeah. So 7 Central Wednesdays, we're going to do it as long as we can.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all about these sorts of things. It's called Bandless because,
We're solo.
doing this whole thing without a band, or doing the band thing with a lot less, in a minimalist kind of way, or a minimalist kind of approach, boiling things down, focusing on what's right in front of you, all that sort of stuff. So
Yeah, and if you guys have some questions that can go deep with this kind of stuff, reach out to Bunn or I, and we talk every day. So if we get a good enough topic, maybe one of your questions can kind of lead to an episode, and
Yeah.
we can always use the help when it comes to that kind of stuff. So cool.
Awesome. Yeah.
Thank you guys for joining us on our first go at this.
Yeah. It was very fun. It's
A
always
little rough
very
around the
fun.
edges, but we'll get it there. Thank you
We'll
for
figure
your
it out.
patience, everybody.
We need a soundtrack.
We do. We need bumpers. We need bumpers. All right, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Everybody have a good night. Appreciate you.